all women. Thank you. Yes, madam. When you are talking about the harassment, we the bankers, the lady comrades in the bank, we also not end our job between 10 to 4 or 10 to 4:30. Our job especially starts after 4 only. We continue it after 6, 7, 8, and during our audit times it goes up to 11. Where you said about the harassment, we are protected by this state bank. We are protected by our association. We are protected by our management. So we are in the work where we are protected from all other things. So we are blessed. As Madam said, bankers, and our GM also said, we should learn what we are, and we should open our eyes, and we should raise voice against the violence. We'll take it up in today. And we assure you, Madam, 100% will rise against the violence of women. Yes, please give a very big hand and show your assurance that you should rise against the violence against women. Thank you, Madam. Next, you have the warrior princess who began her career as a student of Jawaharlal Nehru University and did a doctorate from Madras Institute of Development Studies and has extensively worked with rural women on work, health, women empowerment and for self-help groups. She is an associate professor at the Department of Humanities and Social Science, IIT Madras, participated in many national and international seminars on women issues. When All India Bankers Officers Confederation was preparing a document on alternatives to so-called banking sector reforms, headed by Dr. S.P. Shukla IAS, Madam presented her views on microfinance and self-help group. Thaye Pola Pillai Nulai Pola Selai, her mother, Srimati Maithili Sivaraman, is a woman leader who has published various books on empowerment, women empowerment. Please, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together to welcome Dr. Kalpana. Now I request our Vice President, beloved comrade VP Balaji sir, to gift a memento as a token of love and affection. Yes, madam, we are awaited to hear your speech.
Respected guests on the dais, friends, sisters, comrades, extremely happy to be here with all of you today and to wish you on the occasion of International Working Women's Day. One of the advantages of being the last speaker of the evening is that much of your job has already been done for you. And in this case, it has been done exceedingly well by Ms. Vaiga and Ms. Rita, who have set a fantastic tone for the evening. So all that I have to do is to sort of tie up some ends here and there, I think. So I want to, in fact, begin on a note that Ms. Vaiga has actually already touched on, which is the significance of the day. The reason I want to re-emphasize, I want to put the emphasis on the word, well, first of all, international, since all of us know it's shared by all countries of the world. But the word that I think we have forgotten, the word that has got buried and silenced, is the word Working Women's Day. That is the word which is of extreme importance to us, because what it does is to remind us of the fact that all women are working all the time, right? And unfortunately, much of the work that we do is not acknowledged, not paid, is hidden and is invisible and often not even seen as contributing as a vital part of social life by women themselves. But that apart, there is no denying the fact that women are the first proletariat of the world. Women are the first workers of the world, and there can be no denying that. The reason I want to re-emphasize also is the way in which, I think the very perverse and warped way in which Women's Day is talked about in the media. If you've been looking at any of the channels, it can be any of the TV channels, media, radio, any of the outlets, you will find the emphasis on the woman as a buyer, as a consumer. பெண்கள் தினம் வருதா, உங்க கணவரை கேட்டு உங்களுக்கு விருப்பப்பட்ட உங்க ஜவுளி கடைக்கு போயிட்டு உங்க புடவைய, உங்க அந்த தங்க நகைய, உங்களுக்கான பெர்ஃப்யூமை நீங்க வாங்கிக்கோங்க. இல்ல வீட்டுல இருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு பொருளை, ஒரு வீட்டு சுத்தம் செய்யக்கூடிய ஒரு சாதனத்தை ஒரு புது வாஷிங் மெஷினை நீங்க கேட்டு வாங்குங்க because it is your day. So the notion here is that you are a consumer, you are a buyer, and that most of all that you are looking forward to doing is thinking about the next beautiful sari or the next silk sari or the next piece of gold jewelry. So to completely reduce the importance, to trivialize, to take away the revolutionary significance of the day when more than 100 years ago, like she said, about 20,000 women, it was called the uprising of 20,000 because 20,000 working women from the cotton textile units of New York City, many of them were immigrant women, marched in the coldest months of winter, the brutally cold winter of 1909 and 1910, declaring to the world that we are not invisible anymore, that women are workers. And I think that significance of ourselves as workers, as contributing to the economy, even when we call ourselves homemakers and housewives, that significance has unfortunately been completely lost in this grand advertising spin, which is all about treat yourselves to a great day. And whatever is said about, respect women, honor women, at the end of the day, but buy from us, is the message. Respect women, honor women, but buy from us, right? So what I want to say is that I want to therefore give you a little bit of a flashback and take you into history by asking you also this question. Why has it been so difficult for women to claim the identity of workers? Why is it that the identity that we have been given even without asking is the identity of daughter, wife, mother, sister and daughter-in-law? Never the identity of worker, the primary identity that is due to every woman. What about human history has denied, has taken away our roles and our identities as workers? And there's a little bit of history because not just that I'm a teacher and I lecture all the time, but also history is one of my favorite subjects and I love to talk about the forgotten history of women in ancient societies. In ancient societies, societies that were called hunter-gatherer societies, one of the things we tend to forget always is that man the hunter did not put food on the table. Everyday food on the table during the period that we lived in caves, right, came from women's small game hunting activities and women's gathering activities. And that's what gathering meaning gathering fruits and berries and so on. So gathering and small game hunting is the kind of hunting that women could do, that people could do around the caves in which they lived. So they could step out for a few hours and return with small game, which could then become the food for the day. Whereas what men would participate in would be called the long game hunting. Men would go out in groups of 20 or 30. They would go out for many days, come back half a month later, or come back 3 weeks later, sometimes not come back at all, or come back without a prey, without an animal, and sometimes come back with meat. But which raises the question of what is it that the staple diet was. This could not be men's long game hunting could not be the staple diet. Large game hunting could never be the staple diet. The staple diet came from women's small game hunting. So historians and anthropologists tell us that if women had not contributed to the survival of the human species through their everyday small game hunting activities and their gathering activities, well, we would not have lived to tell the tale and we wouldn't have been talking to each other in this auditorium today. That apart, one of the interesting questions that historians also raise is, so why did women not